Victims are pronounced here, killers here. Beyond that, the date of the crime, all we have to run on are the images that they produce.
Show a cop on horseback.
Near the Capitol?
No Maglev system.
Come on.
Georgetown.
The precogs can see a murder 4 days out. Why the late call?
And we call it a red ball. With crimes of passion, there's no premeditation, so they show up late. Most of our scrambles are flash events like this one. We rarely see anything with premeditation anymore.
People have gotten the message.
The 2002 movie Minority Report, starring Tom Cruise, posed an interesting scenario. What if, with the help of mutated humans who could see the future, precogs for short, meaning precognitive, law enforcement was able to see a future crime and then were able to get to the crime scene before it actually happened?
Positive for Howard Marks.
Mr. Marks, by mandate of the District of Columbia Pre-Crime Division, I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks and Donald Dubin that was to take place today, April 22nd, at 0800 hours, 4 minutes.
No, I didn't do anything.
No, he didn't, not yet, but he was caught seconds before the actual crime was committed. And in this fantasy world, the charge sticks. It's a fascinating idea, one that we could only wish had been around numerous times in our history, but specifically at one period of time that speaks to where we are at this very moment, when perhaps what's happening to America and the world right now may never have been allowed to happen if one man was able to have his voice truly heard in the days and weeks prior to the Iraq War.
I tried to avoid this war. I went to the president in August of 2002 after coming back from a trip and seeing all the planning that was underway. And we had a long meeting upstairs in the residence. Dr. Rice was there, but it was essentially a conversation between President Bush and myself. And for the better part of 2.5 hours, I took him through not only the military planning that was being done in the Pentagon, but I took him through the consequences of going into an Arab country and becoming the occupiers. It is said that I used the Pottery Barn rule. I never did it. Friedman did it. He's next. He's the one who did that. But what I did say to him, once you break it, you're going to own it, and we're going to be responsible for 26 million people standing there looking at us. And it's going to suck up a good 40 to 50% of your army for years, and it's going to take all the oxygen out of the political environment. And you need to understand this, and the expense is going to be enormous.
Now, before you start tuning up, this is not a bashing of anyone nor a partisan primal scream. Fact of the matter is, Colin Powell and others were right about the Iraq War. President Bush was handed erroneous and sometimes fabricated intelligence. And the ability to look back into time right now gives us the luxury of knowing he and the others made a bad call invading Iraq. The country was broken. America was and is still seen as an occupying force. And a connection can indeed be made between that moment and the eventual rise of ISIS, leading we as a nation to find a way to not put ourselves in another bad position, to not do something so knee-jerk as to exacerbate a problem, to think before we act and not regret decisions that could do immeasurable harm.
I would close up our borders to people until we figure out what is going on. Look at Brussels, look at Paris, look at so many cities that were great cities. Paris is almost as bad. If you look at, Paris is no longer the beautiful city of lights. Paris has got a lot of problems in it, and all you have to do is speak to the people that live there. And you look at other places where the same thing has happened, and they're in fear. The city's in fear.
We need to stop this unnecessary, incessant, and damaging fear. All due respect to Donald Trump. I have friends who live in and around Paris. They've been in communication with us and me for many months. None of them speak about a haze of fear or being scared every day. They still send their kids to school. They go shopping. They dine at cafes. They're just like my friends and family who lived in New York City after 9/11. Resilient, tough, and determined, not living in fear. They go on with their lives in spite of the killers, and no amount of demagoguery and bluster will change it. They are survivors, fighters, people who don't live in the past. As for closing America's borders, some might think it's a good idea, but we're better than that. Don't allow killers to drive us into unemployment, tourist business failing, people having their lives dictated by mass killers. Anyone who truly stood for what America believes in would see it the same way. Stop the knee-jerk. Stop the bellowing. Stop the fear. Stop putting ourselves in this position time and time again to look back and wish we knew then what we know now. Because it's simple. You can't make America great unless we stop overreacting and we think before we act every single time. And that is telling it like it is. Rock on, true believers. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow night, right back here on The Hardline.